Hi there, this is a quick update for House of the Dragon based on the most recent behind-the-scenes video that they just put out, the one on the return to Westeros. We pretty much have confirmation that Rhaenyra's third son, Joffrey Velaryon, will be in the TV show, that he hasn't been cut. He's not that big of a character, but it just shows their dedication that we're not condensing or cutting any of the children of the major characters. That we are always afraid that if you're going to cut someone, you're going to cut Joffrey Velaryon. Even I said this. You could kind of merge him with the fourth son, her son, Aegon III. They're not doing that. They are going to have all of them. And I've made previous videos where I said we heard leaks that he's in it. He's not that prominent, along with some of the other ones. That we've heard that Aegon III and Viserys II, her fourth and fifth sons, we've heard they're in it too. But they're played by child actors. I mean, little child actors. You wouldn't recognize them even if I gave the name. They're small children there. That the big ones, there's like 4 children on both sides. That in terms of roles with speaking lines, 4 on each side. That there's Rhaenyra's side, it's her sons, Jake and Luke, and then Daemon's daughters, Baela and Rhaena. And on Alicent's side, you have her 4 children, Aegon II, Helaena, Aemond. Daeron the Daring isn't in Season 1, but we've heard leaks that they mention him in dialogue, because at this time period, he's in Old Town. It's like being away at college. Daeron the Daring, that he's at Old Town squiring with his cousins in House Hightower. But, you know, we've heard of that. He's prominent enough they won't cut that, but even I have said if you could cut Joffrey and merge him with Aegon III, and it's just really nice that they didn't. What happened? Well, there's this inside the episode, behind the scenes thing, where we saw this shot of adult Rhaenyra, Emma Darcy, holding a baby next to one of the child versions of her older sons. I think that's Luke, because the idea is there's two big time skips in the show. That there's the break between episodes 5 and 6 is when they're going to shift from young Rhaenyra and Alicent to adult Rhaenyra and Alicent. And then in episode 6 you'll see the child versions of Jake and Luke, of Aegon II and Aemond. They're only in 2 episodes, 6 and 7. We know from casting reports episode 7 is the big scene where Aemond claims Vhagar. Then there's another time skip, and they shift to the teenage to young adult versions of Jake, Luke, Aemond, Aegon II. So this has to be around episode 6. I said the leak we heard was that episode 6 is reintroducing the adult versions and introducing their children, and it's something like Rhaenyra hasn't been at court for a couple of years. She's been at Dragonstone. And she's coming, the opportunity of everyone's coming back to, she is come to King's Landing to present her new son to her father, the king. This is my third son, Joffrey. And they're not going to introduce her sons incrementally. They're going to introduce all 3 at once when they're introducing the baby, the third one. And the whole thing where Alicent goes, keep trying, eventually you'll have one that looks like you, to Laenor, because the accusation that they're all bastards, which is silly. So, based on the time period here, you can see this is one of the child versions of, I think this is Luke. She must be holding the baby Joffrey. You might say, okay, well, how do you know that? Maybe they condensed him with Aegon III. Just because there's a baby doesn't mean that. That's the second of 2 points in this video. I'm sorry, I'm behind schedule just because so much information came out. Cross-reference this photo with Hollywood Reporter's big spread on this last week, where it was quoting a scene, this must be from the season finale, where it says, Daemon is at Dragonstone in the war room, and he says, I want patrols around the island's perimeter, and he starts listing off the dragons that they have right there. And because they've sent Vermax and Arax away on diplomatic missions, they're listing off what are the dragons with capable riders that we have on Dragonstone. And he lists off 4. He goes, we have Cyrax, Caraxes, Tyraxes, and the joke is he forgot the 4th dragon's name and starts cursing. The 4th one is Melis, which is Rhaenys' dragon. But they mention Tyraxes by name in the Hollywood Reporter thing. That is Joffrey Velaryon's dragon. So that confirmed that. I would have made a video based on that alone, but then we got the behind-the-scenes thing of her holding that is not Aegon III, that must be Joffrey, because Aegon III is a lot younger. That logically, if episode 7 is the Laena funeral, then that's the episode she marries Daemon, so her sons with Daemon, Aegon III and Viserys II, must be born around episode 8 after the second time skip. So all this is lining up that's Joffrey Velaryon. They mentioned Tyraxes, isn't it? Tyraxes doesn't do that much. It's like he's the youngest one you could plausibly ride a long distance. Moondancer isn't big enough yet. Baela's dragon Moondancer is juvenile. It's just big enough she's starting to train flying it around the castle, but not long distances away from the island. When the war begins, it grows up over time. Tyraxes is big enough that, Joff is very young. On top of that, Jane Arryn, one of her things is send me dragon riders as part of my alliance with you to deter and to make them think twice about attacking the Vale, and that never happens. So at a certain point, they send Joffrey to the Eyrie with Tyraxes, and nothing ever comes of it. It's just he's positioned there, like on the chessboard, and he takes Rhaena with him, with her dragon eggs, and she stays there. Eventually, he comes back when they do other stuff. Here's an interesting question. Things might be shifted around because you have to age up the characters, just to have capable actors that, while he's a lot younger in the books and they don't consider Tyraxes like a war asset, in this they do, sort of. So, because he's listing off, we have Tyraxes. I don't think they were quite as willing to use Tyraxes in the books, but the fact that he's older, they might actually, show him going to the Vale just to include Jane Arryn a bit more. That if you want to work in if you want to build up Rhaena and Jane Arryn and show him going there in one episode, they could do that. So yeah, that's lining up there with the aging up the cast and everything. So we really thought they were going to cut him, and people are going to make fun of this. There's more than one person named Joffrey in an entire continent of Westeros, and this is a prequel. He lives before Joffrey Baratheon. And for that matter, everyone calls him Joff. So it's not like people are going to be calling him Joffrey all the time. Now we call him Joff Velaryon, and in the book it says people called him Joff more. And also, Laenor named him after his great love, Joffrey Lonmouth, who has also been cast. We've seen him in things. So people are going to be snickering at that so much. Would people make fun of, there's more than one guy named Robert? For that matter, King Viserys. That Daenerys' brother Viserys is this awful person, and he's Viserys the Third. Rhaenyra's father is Viserys the First, because there's more than one guy in history named Viserys. So that's going to be a whole thing. Or Rickon Stark, that whole thing that we're going on with that name. There's more. That's one of the things I loved about what Martin said, that he thought it was so unrealistic that, I guess he'd been in TV before, where they said, on Beauty and the Beast and other things, never have two characters with the same name. And the one Steve limit is what TV Tropes calls it. And he said, logically, there's more than one person who happens to have that name. And this is before that. Joffrey Velaryon is an obscure enough person that I don't think Cersei would have named him after. So she's not a Targaryen, she's a Lannister. There's a couple of people with that name. It's become so infamous. So, I don't know, but this is just a follow-up to my earlier thing, that we have confirmation that it shows how dedicated they are to not cutting anything. I was going to make a separate video on this. I might as well lump it in here, and I'm just doing this audio only. Another thing I really liked in the Hollywood Reporter article is they said, and this is a sign of they're not cutting anything for Brian Condell. He was talking with Miguel Sapochnik, and they remarked on there was pressure to rename some of the characters who have similar names. Because, the whole thing is names repeat in dynasties, or people have similar names based on other people, like Rhaenyra and Rhaenys was the one that really came up. Rhaenys sounds too close to Rhaenyra. Can we rename her? And Condell said no. And for the same reason that I would give in his position, that it's not just for the primary thing of we have to be true to Martin's world. The meta reason of it's a sign to the audience that we're taking this seriously, that it's not just because we care about the story, it's to show the audience that we care about little details like that, and how important it was. I'm going to link to the article because it contains both things. And just, like I said, I wouldn't mind if they rename like one or two of the third to fourth tier people. We don't want a repeat of the Asha and Osha issue, which is, again, it's not that I'm opposed to renaming people. It was the poor planning, and I'm not the only one that was making fun of this, that you have Osha the Wildling in season 1, and you know that Asha Greyjoy is going to be a major character. She's a POV narrator, and they didn't think maybe we should rename the Wildling instead of the member of a great house who's a major character like Asha Greyjoy. So then we got Yara Greyjoy in season 2 because they just didn't plan it out, which is laziness versus, okay, you thought out in advance, we're going to rename everyone. Like, even if Theon's sister, because she doesn't appear in season 1, if they had Theon give a line in season 1, I have a sister named Yara, that wouldn't have been as bad because it would have shown that they were thinking ahead. But this happened with a couple other things, and like Sweet Robin, for example, his name is Robert in the books, but in the TV show, it's officially Robin. It doesn't really matter because everyone calls him Sweet Robin. It's a nickname that's stuck. So I don't really have a problem with that. And that doesn't even get into all the Freys who are named after other people. So just minor people, that isn't a thing for me, but like Rhaenyra and Rhaenys, that's a prominent thing. Or another example is that Baela and Rhaena are named after them. Rhaena is named after her grandmother. Baela is named after Daemon's father, Baela. So, it's also nice that what if someone had actually said, we can't call him Joffrey Velaryon, he can't be called Joffrey, it's the name of a villain in the original show. Well, that's 200 years later, so we don't know what's going on with the Rickard Stark thing, and I don't think he's a big enough character anyway that I'd really care. But in terms of all the repeated Targaryen names, they're not renaming anyone, as far as we can tell. That there will be multiple people that we've heard a leak that they'll show, this is your grandson Viserys to King Viserys. It's Viserys II, they'll present him. And think of the similar names in this. You have Laena, Helena, Rhaena, Rhaenyra, Rhaenys, multiple Aegons. It's all over the place. But they didn't cut any of this. And like I said, they might not be major characters. Like, I think Joffrey will be a child in season 1, even if he's in episode 10. And then because there's like a month or 2 time skip between seasons, I would guess. They'll probably just recast him with an older kid by season 2. And he's not going to do much, okay? That, like, Viserys II is a baby by the end of season 2. So then they can just age them up as the seasons progress. I'm okay with this. So it's just nice to get that confirmation. We'd already heard leaks about this, that they're not renaming anyone. That Joffrey Velaryon is in it. And now we get mention of Tyraxes. We have this shot of him in there. All good stuff.